is Dean Z speaking to you from my favorite file reading chair. And today I want to go over a file that we received last year. It has strengths and weaknesses, and we're going to go through every piece of it. Here is the whole thing. The law school report, which has your LSAT scores, your GPA, your transcript, and your letters of recommendation. The application itself, the questions that we ask you on the LSAT Flex app, a resume, essays. All right, let's dive in. I'm going to start with the resume. I think I don't actually have a tried and true, hard and fast system for how I look at applications. I kind of mix it up, honestly. I've been doing this for a long time, so you don't want to get stuck in a rut. But I think one great spot for beginning is to look at the resume. It gives you a great brief overview of this person's general trajectory and story. So I just think it is useful as a beginning point. Okay, so I can tell you that this person, first of all, the format is pretty good. It is clear. I can pick out stuff pretty easily, but it's in 2 columns, and I don't love that because you have to go down and then back up and down again. And I just think it's easier to have it go right across the page, just sort of visually easier, mentally easier, etc. That's a very small point. Otherwise, this looks great. Very clear font, nice sans serif. I'm a fan of the sans serif font myself. I can see it's a young woman who graduated from University of Wisconsin last year, is from the state of Michigan. So that is useful for me to file away in my little brain. Obviously, we are a public institution. Being from the state is a small factor in our process. We have a 20% goal for Michigan residents, so it's not huge, but every little bit helps, right? And I can see that almost immediately after graduating from Wisconsin, she began working for a criminal defense firm, a small firm, working on a whole variety of cases. She does not tell me where the firm is. Not a big deal, but that's the kind of question I often have. Like, who is this person? Has she moved around? Is she someone who is stuck in one place? Obviously not, because she went from Michigan to Wisconsin, but has she been outside the Midwest? So on and so forth. So not a big deal, but I notice it. I love that she tells me not just the name of the place she worked, but that it is a criminal defense firm and how many attorneys work there. So I know the size of it and I know what they're doing. That is very helpful. Tells me a little bit about the tasks that she did, sort of straightforward, entry-level legal assistant types of tasks. Nothing surprising there. I could see also though that she worked while in law school for looks like about a year and a half almost, for a nonprofit law firm, working basically legal services work. That is interesting to see. Tells me, okay, interesting. She's got criminal defense, legal services. I'm seeing, sort of something that she might be interested in law-wise. That is interesting. She also worked for about a year at an administrative office at Wisconsin, and somewhere in the middle of all that, she was selected to be on a search committee for a very high-level administrative position at the university. That tells me that she impressed the people she was working for, and they thought well enough of her to recommend her for, a position of some confidence. So that is very interesting. She did some other things. She, similar another administrative position, another legal services type position, also worked in retail, and that would have been in her first summer of after she started college. I think retail work is tough. I like to see that, actually. It is. I think it tells me something about a person's ability to work with other people, to interact with customers, a little bit of a service mentality, which of course the law is basically a service profession. And then here is also a job. This is from before she started college, so she might have wanted to leave that off. Not bad. It's not a terrible thing that's on here, but she worked for a nonprofit doing fundraising work. Probably don't need that in there. She also has a little section on skills, including things like Microsoft Office Suite. Do not need to have that in your application. It's just, I'm going to assume that you know how to use basic computer things, and doesn't really advance the ball at all. One other thing that stands out to me about her resume is she doesn't talk at all about her undergraduate activities. It doesn't say whether she was involved in any clubs or sports or really anything at all. It just tells me what her degree was. Would have liked to know a little bit more about her as a person, and I would have enjoyed seeing that information. Okay, resume down. Now let's look at her law school report, which is where we see all her data. So I can see the one thing I like to look at on this report is the degree school box. It will tell you for every school, unless it's a really tiny school that doesn't send many people to law school, it will tell you for that school for the 3-year period, including the year of this person's graduation, of the applicant's graduation. It will tell you how the graduates of that school did on the LSAT. So for Wisconsin, it tells me that 8% scored in the 95th percentile and higher, and then only 4% scored in the bottom 20th percentile. So that's good. Obviously, Wisconsin is considerably stronger than the national average of LSAT scores. So that tells me it's a academically competitive institution. Now I already know what Wisconsin is. It's a big school, and it's in the Midwest. And if I didn't know what Wisconsin was, I'd not have been doing my job very well. But, sometimes I don't know schools, or I'm not familiar with them as much as I'd like to be. And this is just an excellent shorthand, particularly at the beginning of my time doing this job. It also tells you a little bit about how schools, their grade patterns. So this tells me, a little bit about grade inflation. So 16% of the people at Wisconsin have a 3.8 and above. And real quickly doing the math here, 15% are below 3.0. Okay. Now, so that gives me some information about assessing her GPA, which we haven't gotten to yet. So now we look at what's called the transcript box, and it tells me that the LSAT college mean at Wisconsin is a 158, and that this candidate's GPA was a 2.83, which it helpfully tells me is in the bottom 9 percentile for people graduating from Wisconsin and applying to law school. And the GPA college mean from Wisconsin is 3.4. Again, that's for people applying to law school, not the school as a whole. We don't have that information. And now I look to the LSAT box, which I can see this candidate took this LSAT just one time, and she got a 156, which is in the roughly top third in the country, 65th percentile. I look at the GPA. I mentioned she had 2.83 from Wisconsin. It is also, that's the only institution she's ever attended, so it is her degree GPA too. Sometimes you'll see a degree GPA that is different than the cumulative GPA, but not in this case. All right, I'm going to look at her transcript next, because obviously that 2.83 is catching my eye. Our median is somewhere in the high 3.7s, low 3.8s. Our 25th percentile is, 3.5-ish. So this for Michigan would be, an unusually low GPA, certainly not out of the running. We don't have any cutoffs, but this is something that it's catching my attention among the things that we've talked about so far as a possible concern. So I'm looking at her transcript. She was a major, again, I want to keep this anonymous, so I'm going to just say she was a liberal arts major, not a hard sciences major, not a math major, not engineering, but liberal arts. It's enough information for these purposes. But I can see in her first semester, she got all B's except for a D in a hard science. All right. Maybe this is the case of somebody who was pre-med and then when she stopped being pre-med, she pulled up her GPA. So now we'll look to second semester. Oh, here's another low grade. It is in stats. Okay, third semester, a D in another science, but also a C in a liberal arts course. So, okay, so maybe my theory is not going to work here. Here is a C in a psych course. Oh, now there's another semester, a C in another liberal arts course. I'm going through all of this. I will tell you, it is a mix. Her grades definitely start coming up in her last 2 years, but there is still the random low grade here and there. And so slight upward trajectory, but really there's no clear pattern here. It may be that she was pre-med and then at first and then changed, but the grades do not tell a clear story of once she drops the sciences, she's doing fine. We're going to come back to this because that's where the letters of rec are, but I don't like to look at them until the end. That is something I'm pretty consistent with. Okay, so now I'm flipping quickly through the application itself, the questions that you answer for us. There is not a lot in here worth sharing for this purpose because it's really just identifying information about the person. I don't usually spend a lot of time here when I'm reviewing a file. It becomes helpful in the event we omit the person. It's a lot of data that we need, but for these purposes, not a ton in here. Okay, now we are looking at the essays. One of my favorite parts. I could tell you that she does a very good job with this essay. I mean, I'm pretending as I'm recording this that I'm reading it all for the first time, but of course I read it before this. It is the story of a particular case that she worked on in her postgraduate job in a criminal defense firm. And what I like about it is she doesn't, it's a pretty narrow topic, but it also is capacious enough to let me see a lot about her. I can tell from her essay, she's talking about this one case and she's talking about her interaction with the mother of their client who is on trial and how much sympathy, really empathy she has for the mother who is crying and is very worried about her child. Also talks about her employer in a way that lets me see she is assessing them. She's paying attention to the professionalism of her bosses, and she is impressed with that and inspired by that. But she doesn't spend so much time talking about them that I don't get to know her. Like, I am learning about her based on her reflections on what's making them be doing a good job. She gives interesting details of, that make this case come alive. And that's helpful. Just reading an account of sort of the charges and, the conduct of the trial might not be that interesting, but she's really letting me see the humanity in here. And that is extremely important because, of course, we are admitting her not just to becoming a lawyer, we're admitting her to a law school, to a community of people. And, at Michigan, we care a lot about community. And so knowing that someone who can interact and take care of other people in her community, that is extremely important to me. And she also shows a fair amount of sophistication about what she's talking about. She's not talking about it in a very simple level. She is analyzing what took place. And all in all, it is very well done. It's about 2.5 pages. That seems like a good length to me. It is appropriate to the subject that she is covering. She's not repetitive. All in all, excellent job. But no optional essays. So she has not taken advantage of the opportunity to include an addendum or even a short essay talking about what was going on in her undergraduate experience, but led her to have grades that were, I think it's fair to say, were suboptimal. And it's a year ago, so maybe this is just a case of someone who matured over the course of their time in college. A year is not a ton of time, so I would have wanted to have some account from her, of why her grades were what they were and why that shouldn't worry me about her academic seriousness now when she's applying to law school. I am perfectly willing to be convinced, but she didn't address it. So that's a real lesson. Step back, imagine from the point of view of the assessor, what questions are they going to have? Make sure those questions get addressed. She also didn't write any optional essays. We do give you the opportunity to write up to 2 essays, and we give you a variety of choices. We definitely admit people who don't write optional essays, but it's a little bit like I'm offering you an interview and you're saying, no, thank you. So it would have been nice if she had answered one of those. She really impressed me with her personal statement, so more writing might have impressed me further, gotten her a little closer to the finish line than we are right now. Okay, so my big question at this point in the application review is about her seriousness as a student, given her grades. So let's look, because maybe one of her recommenders addresses this. That's another way that you can handle some kind of question like that you want to make sure you put the minds of the reviewers at ease. You can do it through a letter of rec. Okay, first one I see here is from her employer, the name partner in the small firm, and can tell you it's a 1.5 pages. That's a pretty long letter. Most letters are just 1 page. So when you get onto second page, it tells me, okay, this letter writer was invested enough in the candidate that they are taking time to write a pretty long letter. It tells me a little bit about the writer and his firm, but not too much. Sometimes you'll see letters of rec where people go on for 3/4 of the entire letter telling how amazing they are. This is just enough to orient me and let me know that he is a serious person. Tells a little bit about what she did at the firm, and then goes on to go into detail about how well she does them. And he is full of praise for her, talking about how she passed every test with flying colors. She's done everything asked of her, that when they get firm reviews from clients on Google, those people will often mention the candidate by name. And ends by telling me she will be a superior attorney. So I would call that a rave rec. That is another helpful bit of the application for her. Let's see what the next letter is. Okay, the next letter is by another lawyer at the same firm. So I'll tell you right now, I would have made a different choice if I were this candidate. You have a letter from the named partner who knows you well, who is saying very strong things about you. This is really more of the same. We allow you to submit up to 4 letters of rec, but you want each letter to be doing something different, right? You don't want them to be repetitive. This is basically the same as the first letter, only slightly shorter, and it's just covering the same points. So it hasn't really advanced her case at all. It's sort of wasted real estate, if you will. The next letter, someone from Wisconsin. Maybe they will talk about her academic record. But no, it is someone for whom she worked in one of her administrative jobs. It is quite positive, but specifically says, I cannot speak directly to her academic skills. Goes on to praise her for the outside the classroom skills, but so that's good. It's helpful, it's good, but it's not addressing the big question in my mind. But we got one more letter, and it's from a professor. So let's see. Okay, this says that it was a competitive cohort, and she was in the top echelon. She participated in class. She came to office hours. That is really all it is. It's a 4-paragraph letter. One fairly brief paragraph is saying that she is an exemplary student, but it's not a lot of detail, and it does not talk at all about her other coursework. And so it has not laid to rest my concerns. Okay, so that is everything. That's everything in the application where we land. So what do we know about this applicant? On the plus side, she went to a fine undergraduate school, did not perform well there, does not have a strong academic record, but went on to a really strong postgraduate job that she obviously took very seriously. She has other work experience too. She was diligent about working throughout school. She, made a lot of her time. She's a great writer. She wrote a very good personal statement, but didn't give me any extra optional essays and did not take the opportunity to address her undergraduate performance, which concerns me. She has positive letters of recommendation, but nothing that really, again, talked about her academic capabilities. We know she's a Michigan resident, which is a mark in her favor. But on the whole, I'm going to say that she did not get over the finish line here. I am concerned about her undergraduate record and the lack of addressing of it. So I'm afraid this is going to be a deny. But I'm sure she's going to get to law school somewhere, and I do think she has a really good career in front of her as a lawyer. She's someone who I'm happy is going to be part of the legal profession, even if she's not starting her career at Michigan. Well, all right, that's all I have to say about this candidate. I hope that was useful, and I look forward to doing a few more of these. All right, wherever you go, go blue.